Prabhupada Srila Bhaktivedanta Vaman Goswami Maharaj ki jai. Srila Pravishtam Vishnupada Shatarashata Srimad Srila Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Srila Pravishtam Vishnupada Shatarashata Srimad Srila Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Goswami Maharaj ki jai. Srila Pravishtam Vishnupada Shatarashata Srimad Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Prabhupada ki jai. Nitila Pravishta Mahabhagavat Srila Goksharas Babaji Maharaj ki jai. Nitila Pravishta Srila Satchidananda Bhakti Vinod Thakur ki jai. Nitila Pravishta Vaishnav Sarvabhauma Srila Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj ki jai. Shri Rupa Nugvarya Guru Varga ki jai. Shri Rupa Sanatan Bhatta Raghunath Shri Jeev Gopal Patadash Raghunath Shar Gosai Prabhu ki jai. Shri Sarup Damodar Rai Ramananda Rishi Gopal Shahada Vrinda ki jai. नामचार्य श्री हरिदास ठाकुर की जय। प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासरी गौर भक्त वृंद की जय। श्री क्षेत्र मंडल गौर मंडल ब्रज मंडल मथुरा वृंदावन धाम की जय। सर्व अभिष्ट प्रदात गिरिराज महाराज की जय। श्री राधा कुंज श्याम कुंज की जय। श्री मुन देवी गंगा देवी की जय। श्री तुलसी महारानी वृंद देवी की जय। श्री भक्ति देवी की जय। श्री पूर्णमासी योगमाया की जय। श्री गोपेश्वर महादेव की जय। श्री हरिनाम संकीर्तन की जय। अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय। समागत गौर भक्त वृंद की जय। श्री निताय गौर प्रेमानंदे हरि हरि बोल। ग्रंथराज श्रीमद्-भागवतम की जय। Sorry guys, you're probably sick of me talking about how little I sleep at night, but I gotta do it. Last night I went to sleep close to 2 o'clock, but then my father called me at 4:30 in the morning and needed help with some computer stuff, and then I had a hard time falling asleep afterwards. So I'm just going to do a very short reading because I also have an important meeting right after this, and God. Anyways, just letting you know, giving you a heads up if I'm like, that's why I'm still wearing tilak from yesterday and whatever. Okay, sharing my screen now. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnana Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Namo Vishnu Padaya Radhikaya Priyatmane Shishimar Bhakti Vedanta Narayanitti Namine. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Krishnaya Bhutale Śrīmate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine. Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya eva cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namne Gauratvishe Namaha. Guruve Gaurachandraya Radhikaya Tadalaye Krishnaya Krishna Bhaktaya Tarabhaktaya Namo Namaha. Yam Pravrajantam Anupetam Apeta Krityam Dvaipayano Virahakatara Ajuhava Putreti Tanmayataya Taravo Binedu Stam Sarvabhuta Hridaya Munimanatosmi. Narayanam Namaskrityam Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudirayet. Shrinvatam Swakata Krishna Punya Shravana Kirtana Ridantasto Yabhadrani Vidunati Suritsatam. Nashta Prayeshvabhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavatuttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtaki. Tavai Vasmi Na Jivami Tvaya Vina Iti Vigyaya Radhe Tvam Nayamang Charanantikam Bhaktya Vihina Aparada Lakshai Shivdashtakamattitarangamate Kripamaitam Sharanam Prapana Vrinde Namaste Charanarvindam Bhaja Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Rama Rama Hare Hare. So, where are we? Devahuti, she says to Kapila Muni, her son, who is Bhagavan, she says, I'm disgusted with material desires leading to ignorance. You can dissipate this darkness. And then she asks her first question, which is, she asks him to dispel this illusion of aham, mameti, that, my gross false identification with I, with, my false designation of, I am Madhukar, I am, this, and mine. All those things related to this body are mine. And then she explains, she asks him to explain about jiva and prakriti. The jiva, but the balanced jiva, who has the abhiman of being a purush, the enjoyer, and prakriti, which is that which is enjoyed, the material nature. And so then Kapila Muni, he talks about Adhyatmika yoga. That's the yoga of the soul, right? The spiritual yoga. Adhyatma usually means spiritual. But the yoga system concerning the soul. And Adhyatmika yoga consists of 3 types. Bhakti, Gyan, or Sankhya, and Ashtanga yoga. And then he says, all the limbs of this ancient yoga system are easy to perform. I explained this to the great sages earlier, and now I'll explain it to you. If the mind is attached to material modes, it causes bondage, and if it is attached to the Supreme Lord, it causes liberation. And then he explains the symptoms of he talks about the symptoms of a liberated mind and how the only auspicious path is bhakti, which is attained by the association of sadhus. And then he gives the characteristics and activities of the sadhu. And a sadhu's association can gradually lead one to prema. Practice of Gyan and yoga is incomplete without bhakti. And then, what did we read up to yesterday? I think 33, right? So then Devahuti asks 2 questions. What kind of bhakti will help to easily attain you? And then she asks him to explain Gyan, yoga, and its limbs. So then, first, Kapila, he recommends spontaneous bhakti, bhāva. And that's 32. Let's just go to 32. We'll just read exactly what he said. 32. Okay. The Lord Kapila said, the senses are symbolic representations of the demigods, and their natural inclination is to work under the direction of the Vedic injunctions. As the senses are representative of the demigods, so the mind is a representative of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The mind's natural duty is to serve. When that service spirit is engaged in devotional service to the personality of Godhead without any motive, that is far better than even salvation. Bhakti, devotional service, dissolves the subtle body of the living entity without separate effort, just as fire in the stomach digests what we eat. Okay, this is what we made it up to yesterday. Naikatmatam me sprihayati ket. Sorry. Naikatmatam me sprihayanti kechin matpara seva bhirata madiha yenonyato bhagavata prasajya sarvajayante mama porushani. A pure devotee who is attached to the activities of devotional service and who always engages in the service of my lotus feet never desires to become one with me. Such a devotee who is unflinchingly engaged always glorifies my pastimes and activities. Okay, purport by Srila Prabhupada. There are 5 kinds of liberation stated in the scriptures. One is to become one with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, or to forsake one's individuality and merge into the Supreme Spirit. This is called Ekat Matam. A devotee never accepts this kind of liberation. The other 4 liberations are to be promoted to the same planet as God, Vaikuntha, to associate personally with the Supreme Lord, to achieve the same opulence as the Lord, and to attain the same bodily features as the Supreme Lord. A pure devotee, as will be explained by Kapila Muni, does not aspire for any of the 5 liberations. He especially despises as hellish the idea of becoming one with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Sri Prabodhananda Saraswati, a great devotee of Lord Chaitanya, said, Kaivalyam narakayate. The happiness of becoming one with the Supreme Lord, which is aspired for by the Mayavadis, is considered hellish. That oneness is not for pure devotees. There are many so-called devotees who think that in the conditioned state we may worship the personality of Godhead, but there are many so-called devotees who think that in the conditioned state we may worship this personality of Godhead, but that ultimately there is no personality. They say that since the absolute truth is impersonal, one can imagine a personal form of the impersonal absolute truth for the time being. But as soon as one becomes liberated, the worship stops. That is the theory put forward by the Mayavad philosophy. Actually, the impersonalists do not merge into the existence of the Supreme Person, but also into his personal bodily luster, which is called Brahmajyoti. Although that Brahmajyoti is not different from his personal body, that sort of oneness, merging into the bodily luster of this personality of Godhead, is not accepted by a pure devotee, because the devotees engage in greater pleasures than the so-called pleasure of merging into his existence. The greatest pleasure is to serve the Lord. Devotees are always thinking about how to serve him. They are always designing ways and means to serve the Supreme Lord, even in the midst of the greatest obstacles of material existence. The Mayavadis accept the description of the pastimes of the Lord as stories. Actually, they are not stories. They are historical facts. Pure devotees accept the narrations of the pastimes of the Lord not as stories, but as absolute truth. The word mama porushani are significant. Devotees are very much attached to glorifying the activities of the Lord, whereas the Mayavadis cannot even think of these activities. According to them, the absolute truth is impersonal. Without personal existence, how can there be activity? The impersonalists take the activities mentioned in the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, Bhagavad Gita, and other Vedic literatures as fictitious stories, and therefore they interpret them most mischievously. They have no idea of the personality of Godhead. They unnecessarily poke their noses into the scripture and interpret it in a deceptive way in order to mislead the innocent public. The activities of Mayavad philosophy are very dangerous to the public, and therefore Lord Chaitanya warned us never to hear from any Mayavadi about any scripture. They will spoil the entire process, and the person hearing them will never be able to come to the path of devotional service to attain the highest perfection, or will be able to do so only after a very long time. It is clearly stated by Kapila Muni that bhakti activities, or activities in devotional service, are transcendental to mukti. This is called pancham purushartha. Generally, people engage in the activities of religion, economic development, and sense gratification, and ultimately, they work with an idea that they are going to become one with the Supreme Lord. They work with the idea of mukti. But bhakti is transcendental to all these activities. The Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, therefore, begins by stating that all kinds of pretentious religiosity is completely eradicated from the Bhagavatam. Ritualistic activities for economic development and sense gratification, and after frustration and sense gratification, the desire to become one with the Supreme Lord, are all completely rejected in the Bhagavatam. The Bhagavatam is especially meant for the pure devotees who always engage in Krishna consciousness, in the activities of the Lord, and always glorify these transcendental activities. Pure devotees worship the transcendental activities of the Lord in Vrindavan, Dwarka, and Mathura, as they are narrated in the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam and other Puranas. The Mayavadi philosophers completely reject them as stories, but actually they are great and worshipable subject matters, and thus are relishable only for devotees. That is the difference between a Mayavadi and a pure devotee. One second, I'm just opening up, just looking at the comments. 35. Pashyanti te me ruchiranyabhasanta Prasanna vaktrarunalochanani Rupani devyani vada pradani Sakam vacham sprihaniyam vadanti. O my mother, my devotees always see the smiling face of my form, with eyes like the rising morning sun. They like to see my various transcendental forms, which are all benevolent, and they also talk favorably with me. Purport. Mayavadis and atheists accept the forms of the deities in the temple as Mayavadis and atheists accept the forms of the deities in the temple of the Lord as idols. But devotees do not worship idols. They directly worship the personality of Godhead in his Archa incarnation. Archa refers to the form which we can worship in our present condition. Actually, in our present state, it is not possible to see God in his spiritual form, because our material eyes and senses cannot conceive of a spiritual form. We cannot even see the spiritual form of the individual soul. When a man dies, we cannot see how the spiritual form leaves the body. That is the defect of our material senses. In order to be seen by our material senses, the Supreme Personality of Godhead accepts a favorable form which is called Archa Vigraha. This Archa Vigraha, sometimes called the Archa incarnation, is not different from him. Just as the Supreme Personality of Godhead accepts various incarnations, he takes on forms made out of matter, clay, wood, metal, and jewels. There are many Shastric injunctions which give instructions for carving forms of the Lord. These forms are not material. If God is all-pervading, then he is also in the material elements. There is no doubt about it. But the atheists think otherwise. Although they preach that everything is God, when they go to the temple and see the form of the Lord, they deny that he is God. According to their own theory, everything is God. Then why is the deity not God? Actually, they have no conception of God. The devotee's vision, however, is different. Their vision is smeared with love of God. As soon as they see the Lord in his different forms, the devotees become saturated with love, for they do not find any difference between the Lord and his form in the temple. They do not find any difference between the Lord and his form in his temple, as do the atheists. The smiling face of the deity in the temple is beheld by the devotees as transcendental and spiritual, and the decoration on the body of the Lord is very much appreciated by the devotees. It is a duty of the spiritual master to teach how to decorate the deity in the temple, how to cleanse the temple, and how to worship the deity. There are different procedures and rules and regulations which are followed in the temples of Vishnu, and devotees go there and see the deity, the Vigraha, and spiritually enjoy the form because all the deities are benevolent. The devotees express their minds before the deity, and in many instances, the deity also gives answers. But one must be a very elevated devotee in order to be able to speak with the Supreme Lord. Sometimes the Lord informs the devotee through dreams. These exchanges of feelings between the deity and the devotee are not understandable by atheists, but actually the devotee enjoys them. Kapila Muni is explaining how the devotees see the decorated body and face of the deity, and how they speak with him in devotional service. Tardarshaniya Vayavar Udara Vilasahase Kshitavama Shuktai Ritat Manorita Pranangsha Bhakti Anichato Me Gatamandima Prayukte. Upon seeing the charming forms of the Lord, smiling and attractive, and hearing his very pleasing words, the pure devotee almost loses all other consciousness. His senses are freed from all other engagements, and he becomes absorbed in devotional service. Thus, in spite of his unwillingness, he attains liberation without separate endeavor. Purport. There are three divisions of devotees: the first class, second class, and third class. Even the third class devotees are liberated souls. It is explained in this verse that although they do not have knowledge, simply by seeing the beautiful decoration of the deity in the temple, the devotee is absorbed in thought of him and loses all other consciousness. Simply by fixating in Krishna consciousness, engaging the senses in the service of the Lord, one is imperceptibly liberated. This is also confirmed in Bhagavad Gita. Simply by discharging uncontaminated devotional service as prescribed in the scriptures, one becomes equal to Brahman. In Bhagavad Gita, it is said, Brahma bhuyaya kalpate. This means that the living entity in his original state is Brahman, because he is part and parcel of the Supreme Brahman. But simply because of his forgetfulness of his real nature as an eternal servitor of the Lord, he is overwhelmed and captured by Maya. His forgetfulness of his real constitutional position is Maya. Otherwise, he is eternally Brahman. When one is trained to become conscious of his position, he understands that he is a servitor of the Lord. Brahman refers to a state of self-realization. Even the third-class devotee, who is not advanced in knowledge of the absolute truth, but simply offers obeisances with great devotion, thinks of the Lord, sees the Lord in the temple, and brings forth flowers and fruits to offer to the deity. So even a third-class devotee who does all those things becomes imperceptibly liberated. Shraddhayanvita. With great devotion, the devotees offer worshipful respects and paraphernalia to the deity. The deities of Radha and Krishna, Lakshmi and Narayan, and Sita and Ram and Sita are very attractive to devotees. So much so that when they see the statue decorated in the temple of the Lord, they become fully absorbed in thought of the Lord. That is the state of liberation. In other words, it is confirmed herewith that even a third-class devotee is in the transcendental position above those who are trying for liberation by speculation or by other methods. Even great impersonalists, like Shukadeva Goswami and the four Kumaras, were attracted by the beauty of the deities in the temple, by the decorations and by the aroma of tulsi offered to the Lord, and they became devotees. Even though they were in a liberated state, instead of remaining impersonalists, they were attracted by the beauty of the Lord and became devotees. Here the word vilas is very important. Vilas refers to the activities or pastimes of the Lord. It is a prescribed duty in temple worship that not only should one visit the temple to see the deity nicely decorated, but at the same time he should hear the recitation of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, Bhagavad Gita, or some other literature which is regularly recited in the temple. It is the system in Vrindavan that in every temple there is recitation of the Shastras. Even third-class devotees who have no literary knowledge or no time to read Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam or Bhagavad Gita get the opportunity to hear about the pastimes of the Lord. In this way, their minds remain always absorbed in the thoughts of the Lord, His form, His activities, and His transcendental nature. This state of Krishna consciousness is a liberated stage. Lord Chaitanya therefore recommended 5 important processes in the discharge of devotional service. 1. To chant the holy names of the Lord. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. 2. To associate with the devotees and serve them as far as possible. 3. To hear Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. 4. To see the decorated temple and the deity, and, if possible, 5. To live in a place like Vrindavan or Mathura. These 5 items alone can help a devotee achieve the highest perfectional stage. This is confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita and here in the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. That third class devotees can also imperceptibly achieve liberation is accepted in all Vedic literatures. Okay. Sorry. I just. Ato vibhutte mama maya vinastam aishvaramastanga anupravrittam Shriyam Bhagavatim Vasprihayan Shriyam Bhagavatim Vasprihayanti Bhadram Parasya Mete Shnuvate Tuloke. That's strange. There's way too many syllables in this one. Shriyam Bhagavatim Vasprihayanti Bhadram. Oh, no, it's okay. I just read it weird. Thus, because he is completely absorbed in thought of me, the devotee does not desire even the highest benediction obtainable in the upper planetary systems, including Satyaloka. He does not desire the 8 material perfections obtained from mystic yoga, nor does he desire to be elevated to the kingdom of God. Yet, even without desiring them, the devotee enjoys, even in this life, all the offered benedictions. This is 37? Okay, good. Purport. The vibhuti, or opulences, offered by Maya are of many varieties. We have experience of different varieties of material enjoyments, even on this planet. But if one is able to promote himself to higher planets, like Chandraloka, that's the moon, the sun, or still higher, Maharloka, Janaloka, and Tapaloka, or even ultimately the highest planet, which is inhabited by Brahma and is called Satyaloka, there are immense possibilities for material enjoyment. For example, the duration of life on higher planets is far, far greater than on this planet. It is said that on the moon, the duration of life is such that our 6 months are equal to 1 day. You cannot even imagine the duration of life on the highest planet. It is stated in Bhagavad Gita that Brahma's 12 hours are inconceivable even to our mathematicians.
I didn't get that. Could you try again?
Yeah, not even the mathematicians would understand. Siri. That's so funny. Okay. These are all descriptions of the external energy of the Lord, or Maya. Besides these, there are other opulences which the yogis can achieve by their mystic power. They are also material. A devotee does not aspire for all these material pleasures, although they are available to him simply by wishing. By the grace of the Lord, a devotee can achieve wonderful success simply by willing, but a real devotee does not like that. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has taught that one should not desire material opulence or material reputation, nor should one try to enjoy material beauty. One should simply aspire to be absorbed in the devotional service of the Lord, even if one does not get liberation, but has to continue the process of birth and death unlimitedly. Actually, however, to one who engages in Krishna consciousness, liberation is already guaranteed. Devotees enjoy all the benefits of the higher planets and the Vaikuntha planets also. It is especially mentioned here, Bhāgavatam Bhadram. In the Vaikuntha planets, everything is eternally peaceful, yet a pure devotee does not even aspire to be promoted there. But still he gets that advantage. He enjoys all the facilities of the material and spiritual worlds, even during the present lifespan. Nakarhichin mat parashanta rupe nakshanti me no me nimisho leti heti yesham aham priya atma sutascha saka guru su hridodayavamishtam. The Lord continued, My dear mother, devotees who receive such transcendental opulences are never bereft of them. Neither weapons nor the change of time can destroy such opulences. Because the devotees accept me as their friend, their relative, their son, preceptor, benefactor, and supreme deity, they cannot be deprived of their possessions at any time. Purport. And I think we're ending with this verse for today. It's a short reading today. It is stated in Bhagavad Gita that one may elevate himself to the higher planetary systems, even up to Brahmaloka, by dint of pious activities. But when the effects of such pious activities are finished, one again comes back to this earth to begin a new life of activities. Thus, even though one is promoted to the higher planetary system for enjoyment and a long duration of life, still that is not a permanent settlement. But as far as the devotees are concerned, their assets, the achievement of devotional service and the consequent opulence of Vaikuntha, even on this planet, are never destroyed. Those assets are never destroyed. In this verse, Kapila addresses his mother as Shantarupa, indicating that the opulences of the devotees are fixed, because devotees are eternally fixed in the Vaikuntha atmosphere, which is called Shantarupa, because it is in the mode of pure goodness, undisturbed by the mode of passion and ignorance. Once one is fixed in the devotional service of the Lord, his position of transcendental service cannot be destroyed, and the pleasure and service simply increase unlimitedly. That's beautiful. Once one is fixed in the devotional service of the Lord, his position of transcendental service cannot be destroyed, and the pleasure and service simply increase unlimitedly. For the devotees engaged in Krishna consciousness, in the Vaikuntha atmosphere, there is no influence of time. In the material world, the influence of time destroys everything. But in the Vaikuntha atmosphere, there is no influence of time or of the demigods, because there are no demigods in the Vaikuntha planets. Here, our activities are controlled by different demigods. Even if we move our hand and leg, the action is controlled by the demigods. But in the Vaikuntha atmosphere, there is no influence of the demigods or of time. Therefore, there is no question of destruction. When the time element is present, there is the certainty of destruction. But when there is no time element, past, present, or future, then everything is eternal. Therefore, this verse uses the words na nangshanti, indicating that the transcendental opulences will never be destroyed. The real reason for freedom from destruction is also described. The devotees accept the Supreme Lord as the most dear personality and reciprocate with him in different relationships. They accept the Supreme Personality of Godhead as the dearmost friend, the dearmost relative, the dearmost son, the dearmost preceptor, and the dearmost well-wisher or the dearmost deity. The Lord is eternal. Therefore, any relationship in which we accept him is also eternal. It is clearly confirmed herein that the relationships cannot be destroyed, and therefore the opulences of those relationships are never destroyed. Every living entity has the propensity to love someone. We can see that if someone has no object of love, he generally directs his love to a pet animal like a cat or a dog. Thus, the eternal propensity for love in all living entities is always searching for a place to reside. From this verse, we can learn that we can love the Supreme Personality of Godhead as our dearmost object, as a friend, as a son, as a preceptor, or as a well-wisher. And there will be no cheating and no end to such love. We shall eternally enjoy the relationship with the Supreme Lord in different aspects. A different feature of this verse is the acceptance of the Supreme Lord as the Supreme Preceptor. Bhagavad Gita was spoken directly by the Supreme Lord, and Arjuna accepted Krishna as Guru, or spiritual master. Similarly, we should accept only Krishna as the supreme spiritual master. Krishna, of course, means Krishna and his confidential associates. Okay, Krishna is not alone. When we speak of Krishna, Krishna means Krishna in his name, in his form, in his qualities, in his abode, and in his associates. Krishna is never alone, for the devotees of Krishna are not impersonalists. For example, a king is always associated with his secretary, his commander, his servant, and so much paraphernalia. As soon as we accept Krishna...
I didn't get that. Could you try it?
Sorry. Sorry about that. Krishna is never alone, for the devotees of Krishna are not persons. For example, a king is always associated with his secretary, his commander, his servant, and so much paraphernalia. As soon as we accept Krishna and his associates as our preceptors, no ill effects can destroy our knowledge. In the material world, the knowledge which we may acquire may change because of the influence of time. But nevertheless, the conclusions received from Bhagavad Gita directly from the speeches of the Supreme Lord Krishna can never change. There is no use of interpreting Bhagavad Gita. It is eternal. Krishna, the Supreme Lord, should be accepted as one's best friend. He will never cheat. He will always give his friendly advice and friendly protection to the devotee. If Krishna is accepted as a son, he will never die. Here we have a very loving son or child, but the father and mother, or those who are affectionate towards him, always hope, may my son not die. But Krishna actually never will die. Therefore, those who accept Krishna or the Supreme Lord as their son will never be bereft of their son. That's so nice. In many instances, devotees have accepted the deity as a son. In Bengal, there are many such instances. And even after the death of the devotee, the deity performs the Shad ceremony for the father. The relationship is never destroyed. People are accustomed to worship different forms of demigods. But in Bhagavad Gita, such a mentality is condemned. Therefore, one should be intelligent enough to worship only the Supreme Personality of Godhead and its different forms, such as Lakshmi Narayan, Sitaram, and Radha Krishna. Thus, one will never be cheated. By worshipping the demigods, one may elevate himself to the higher planets, But during the dissolution of the material world, the deity and the abode of the deity will never be destroyed. But one who worships the Supreme Personality of Godhead is promoted to the Vaikuntha planets, where there is no influence of time, destruction, or annihilation. The conclusion is that the time influence cannot act upon devotees who accepted the Supreme Personality of Godhead as everything. That was a nice purport. I like that. Oh, and just one thing on this point of Krishna never being alone. I remember when I was little. I can't remember that. I just remember Radha Priya. She said, this is when she was also like a teenager, and I was probably not even a teenager. But she said that there's a picture of Krishna, and then she said that Gurudev said that we should never see Krishna alone. Like when there's a picture of Krishna just by himself, without any other associate with him, then that we don't accept that, because Krishna without his devotee, Krishna without Shakti, without Radharani, is just impersonal Brahma. He's just, but it's the Shakti, the Radharani, that makes Krishna, you can't accept one without the other. And so Krishna without his devotee, without his Shakti, is impersonal Brahma. All right. And tomorrow we will read Kapila Muni will explain Vaidhi Sadhan Bhakti and how the greatest benefit is possible only by offering one's mind in pure bhakti to me. Right. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur, Hari Bol. And maybe Mridanga tomorrow. Okay. Yes. Oh. Jai Shri Guru Gauranga Gandharva Giridhari Shri Radha Vinod Bihari Ju ki Jai Shri Govinda Gopinath Maran Mohan Ju ki Jai Vishnu Vishnupada Ashtara Shata Shishman Shila Bhakti Vedanta Narayan Gosai Maharaj Shila Gurudev ki Jai Nitil Vishnu Vishnupada Ashtara Shata Shishman Shila Bhakti Vedanta Vaman Gosai Maharaj ki Jai Nitil Vishnu Vishnupada Ashtara Shata Shishman Shila Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj Shila Prabhupada ki Jai Nitil Vishnu Vishnupada Ashtara Shata Shishman Shila Bhakti Vigyan Keshav Gosai Maharaj ki Jai Nitil Vishnu Vishnupada Ashtara Shata Shishman Shila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Gosai Prabhupada ki Jai Nitil Vishnu Mahabhagavat Shila Bhakshadas Prabhuji Maharaj ki Jai Nitil Vishnu Vaishnava Sarvabhauma Shila Jagannathas Prabhuji Maharaj ki Jai Nitil Vishnu. Sorry, let me just, I spaced out. Nitil Vishnu Shila Bhakshadas Prabhuji Maharaj ki Jai Nitil Vishnu Shila Sachidananda Bhaktivedanta Thakur ki Jai Nitil Vishnu Vaishnava Sarvabhauma Shila Jagannathas Prabhuji Maharaj ki Jai Shri Rupa Gauriya Guru Varada ki Jai Shri Rupa Sanatan Patara Guran Shri Jeev Gopal Patadashamana Shara Gosai Prabhu ki Jai Shri Sarup Damodar Rai Ramanandari Shri Gopal Shada Vrinda ki Jai Namachai Shila Hairas Thakur ki Jai Prem se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki Jai Shri Kshetra Mandal Gaura Mandal Vraja Mandal Mathura Vrindavan Dham ki Jai Sarva Abhishtapadata Giriraj Maharaj ki jai, Shri Radha Kund Shama Kund ki jai, Shri Muna Devi Ganga Devi ki jai, Shri Tulsi Maharani Vrinda Devi ki jai, Shri Bhakti Devi ki jai, Shri Purnamasi Yoga Maya ki jai, Shri Gopeshwar Mahadev ki jai, Shri Harinam Sankirtan ki jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai, Samagata Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki jai, Grantaraj Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam ki jai, Shri Nitai Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bo. Vrindai Tulsi Devai. Priyai Keshavasacha Krishna Bhakti Padadevi Sattvatai Namo Namaha. Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha. Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Dandavat Pranams. See you all tomorrow. Thanks, Indira Mataji. All right. See you all tomorrow. Hari Bol.